Hello everyone. Welcome to another lesson with the Score Guides. My name is Mustafa Nazari and I'll be your teacher today with effective academic reading. Today we're going to work on an academic assignment, reading and academic reading process and strategies, annotations, close, active, citation, connecting reading to writing, followed by a checklist and some tips for you. Now, let's look at an academic assignment. Usually what we get in our projects while studying at university is something like a roller coaster. Your academic journey starts when you prepare, you have your topic ready, you go to your library, search some sources for your projects. So we have research here, but after research, you need to go and read those articles. So the reading stage is another step for us, followed by we need to go and cite those sources in our projects or assignments. Then we go and write, finalize our essay, and at the end, you try to report either in the form of a presentation, or you publish, or you submit your essay. Now, today, our focus would be on the reading part of this cycle. Let's know more about reading skills. There's a beautiful quote here by Lestrade. According to Lestrade, reading skills lead a person to interact and gain meaning from written language. There's another quote. Reading is an active process. It's an interaction between pages and your brain. As you see, when we think of a reading skill, we'll have a form of interaction and gaining meaning. So it's an active process. Now, there is a very general classification when we refer or think of reading, and that is active versus passive reading. Now, who is a passive reader? This reader reads the text without any purpose. However, an active reader reads it with a purpose. Passive reading, don't preview, just jump right into reading. The active reading, preview a text before reading. Read without questions in mind. An active reader has always some questions in mind. A passive reader doesn't take notes while reading. On the other hand, an active reader writes in the margins, and that's called annotations. And finally, a passive reader does not think about the sections in reading. An active reader always considers the structure of the text and think of its outline and format. After knowing about active and passive reading, is the time to think of an academic or university reading. Now, what do we know about this? What you really read when you're at university. So you just think of lecture slides, ebooks, journal articles, internet articles, magazines, right? And why do we read them? So we read those articles in order to prepare for lectures, to review our chapters or textbooks, or the most important thing, when we write some assignments. But what are some top features of academic reading? Number one, academic reading is an active reading, it's not passive. There is a process. Academic reading is the time when you make connections with the other readings as well. And finally, in academic reading, one of the main purposes is to complete an assignment. So assignment completion is another unique feature of an academic reading. Let's go to the next part in this course. When we think of an academic reading, let's see that there is a process, or there are three stages: pre-reading, reading, and post-reading. But what should we do in each step? So as you see here, it looks like a cycle. So a process is happening. Before you read it, then post-read it. Now, in before reading, we will focus on the source, which think of our previous knowledge, the purpose of your reading, and sometimes we make some big predictions. Today, in this lesson, I'll show you how to do it in a real article. Now, in the reading stage, we try to have some narrower predictions. When we read paragraph by paragraph, we try to find some key ideas, arguments, plus some details. We classify or organize or understand the structure of an article, And the most important part is annotations, is the way we take notes. And finally, in post-reading is the time to summarize, write an outline. You go and evaluate this article, compare it with the other articles you just read. You think of their weaknesses or strength. And the most important thing is the way we try to integrate. I'll talk about this later. But what are these subcategories? These categories are called reading strategies. Now, let's go and do something practical. Imagine that you're in a writing class at your university and your instructor assigns a kind of writing assignment. So the topic is COVID-19 and mental health issues among university students, and he wants you to write an essay. Now, this is the beginning of the journey. What should I do? Perhaps you go to your library and search some articles. You find something interesting in a magazine called Science News, and that could be something like this. A beautiful article, a very fresh article, 2021 by Gupta. But you want to use it in your writing assignment, but you have to read it first, right? Now, how do you read it? Based on these three steps. Let's go. As you remember, the first step was the pre-reading stage, right? Great. Now, there are four things that you can think of while working on your pre-reading. Number one, you can ask this question. What is the source? When was it written? So you say, hey, okay, this is Science News Magazine 2021. Number two, what are you reading it for? This is in pre-reading. Be careful, guys. You haven't read it yet. You just have some questions in mind. So you answer, well, I read it in order to understand and classify the main ideas and details. What questions are you looking for? You might say, why COVID-19 and mental health? Is there any cause and effect relationship? Can I find it in this article? Does it offer some solutions? And question number four, how does this text relate to the topic of my paper? How am I going to use this in my assignment? So you might say it can provide support to my arguments. I can use it in my body parts, try to develop my thesis statement, topic sentences in my body parts. These all happen in your pre-reading stage, right? Great. So keep these four questions in mind. Now we are getting ready to go and read the article. Before we go to the reading part, remember that the most important thing in your reading stage is something called annotation. Now, there's a picture for you here. If you look at this, you probably guess what is going to happen. So annotation means when you write some note in your article's margins. Option number two, you go and highlight or underline your text. You can use some asterisks to focus your attention. And finally, you might use some stickers like this. This is called annotations. And today we're going to focus on this skill because that's the most important thing in an academic reading. Now, you might ask this question, how can we take notes or how can we annotate in a better way? You can read in three levels and each level take notes. Okay, for example, you might read your article at a very basic level, okay, level number one, that is called close reading. And you just go highlight, underline some main ideas, arguments, details, pieces of evidence, statistics. If you do that, you're annotating a closed reading level. But one upper level than close is something called active reading. In this stage, you try to write notes in order to create a dialogue with the text. So it's text plus you. And when I say you, it's your background knowledge and your experiences. And one upper level of note taking is when you read it, you identify some important pieces for your citation, either MLA, APA. So you go and select those parts in your article, try to take some notes because you want to use them in your writing assignment. What I want to do now, I want to show you how to do it, how to annotate based on these three levels. Now, let's do something important today. we're going to read this article. Please pause the video for 3 to 5 minutes. Read this. Try to think what are some key concepts, details, ideas that you might highlight or underline. Just think of those items, then unpause the video and I'll show you how to read it in each level and annotate properly. Now we are in our reading stage and close reading level. As you see here, my focus is on close reading and annotations. What I did here is that I highlighted some main ideas and details for you with a green highlighter. Now, these are some important parts in this article, but what are my notes? So for the first two paragraphs, I wrote something like this. A common problem, 85%, some special groups. You don't need to write a full sentence or a paragraph. It can be a few words, like a title, like a heading, but it should be meaningful. For another part of this article, I wrote students' mental problems, past plus present. This is my annotation. In paragraph number 4, I read about research or study, 2,500 students, and they identified 3 levels, high, moderate, low. In paragraph number 5, some factors, but they focused on media. And the last paragraph, one solution, colleges and universities should do something. Now, be careful. I used a green highlighter here. I highlighted some important details, ideas, arguments, and that is called close reading. And this is my annotation. Now, I'm going to read this text at one upper level, try to create a dialogue with the text, and that is called active reading. Now, the focus of active reading will be on creating a conversation with the author. If you see here, for example, for paragraph 1, I wrote that my classmates and I feel the same these days. Paragraph number 2, also students who don't know about technology might have this kind of stress. Be careful. This note is not part of the text. It is based on my experience. So please, whenever you read an article, try to also take some notes like this, and that's called active reading. Then for my paragraph number 5, I said that there are the other factors, such as technical issues, financial problems. I'm adding to the text. I am talking with the author. I'm not just a passive reader. And finally, this article only talked about one solution, but I'm adding more, like government can provide some facilities, family can provide support. Let's go to our third level of reading and annotations. Now we are again in reading stage, and this time citation reading level. And I highlighted these areas in this article because I want to use them in my writing assignment. These parts are valuable to me, okay? So I use a different highlighter. For example, paragraph number 3, I will use this part in my introduction paragraph. I'm going to paraphrase you. Or paragraph number 4, this can be evidence for my body paragraph. I want to show that a research has happened in this area. And finally, I love the last sentence, and I want to quote this in my conclusion paragraph, for instance. If you take notes like this, next time you read an article, this is called citation reading. Now, what I want to do, I want to go and combine all these annotations coming from 3 levels of reading. As you see here, there are 3 colors. The green notes refer to close reading, the blue notes, active reading, and the orange ones, citation. This is what should we do during reading an article. Now we are in our post-reading stage, and it's a good idea to do 2 or 3 of these things. For example, you can summarize or visualize your reading. You can write an outline of this article. Think about the strengths or weaknesses connected with the other articles you have read for this assignment. So what I did, for example, I wrote a summary here, just like one sentence, sometimes 2 or 3 sentences. What else should I do to be very helpful for my writing assignment? You go and write an article outline, or it has another name, working bibliography. Now, if you remember, my article had 6 parts, and each paragraph had a purpose, had a topic. It talked about mental health in the United States, mental health past, present, research, cause and one solution. That is what I do, but there are two important things. Can you compare this article with the other articles? You might say, what are some strengths? Because for your academic assignment, you are not only reading one article, you might read 2 or 3. So are they all similar? And we want to connect them with the other articles we just read. Now we go to the next thing, how to connect reading to writing. In the first article, that was the outline. Also another article, article number 2 from CBC News. In that article, it talked about causes, community, of university demands, international students, solutions like workshops, yoga classes. What should I do for my writing? Whenever you read an article, try to write its outline or working bibliography. For example, for this assignment, I read 2 articles and now their outlines are ready. How can I use them in my writing? So imagine that this is going to be the outline of my essay. I have an introduction, 2 body paragraphs, and 1 conclusion. Then, when you have these outlines, you can easily design your outline. You might say, in my body paragraph, I want to talk about some causes. Now, cause number 1, I want to focus on technology. Which article was it? Now we want to cite it, right? You say article number 1, part D. I want to use this section in my body number 1. And then I want to talk about 2 causes. So I go to article number 2, sense of community, article number 2, part A. So I'll go and cite these 2 things in my writing. So I borrow this for my body 1, but be careful, cite it properly. In body number 2, I might talk about some solutions. Solution number 1, college. Solution number 2, workshop. That is how we connect our articles to our writing. There's a checklist for you here, so be careful, guys. When you want to go and read your academic articles, try to follow these 10 items. There are 3 steps here, pre, reading, and post, and each step we have to ask some questions. So follow this. If you say yes, then you're ready to go. Finally, there are some tips for you. Thanks for joining this class. Good luck with your future assignments. Bye.